Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making a scroll saw spoon rest. Now initially I had the idea to make a spoon rest and I was going to make it a wood lathe project. And then I thought about it and I thought, you know what, this project would probably be better suited and would probably apply to more of you out there if it was accessible through either a scroll saw or in this case, this one is also very accessible with a bandsaw. So that is what we're going to start off with, and it's a great scrap project. So that's where we're going to start, with a little bit of scrap from the wood pile. So I pulled this scrap out of the rack. It's a piece of cherry. It's 3/8 of an inch thick. It's just over 3 inches wide, and I think it's 16 inches long. Now I want to make 2 spoon rests here. So for each spoon rest, we're going to need 2 squares, 3/8 of an inch thick, and they will measure 3 inches by 3 inches. So I'm going to take this over to the table saw and cut my blanks for both my spoon rests. So as I said, for each spoon rest you need 2 pieces. So we need to do a little bit of layout on one. And the very first thing that we want to do is marking from corner to corner. We're going to mark the center of our board. And now using that center point as the center axis for a compass, we're going to draw a 2 3/4 inch diameter circle. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure from the outer edge of that circle in towards the middle by 1/4 of an inch. Once we get that mark on there, we're going to reset our compass to that point, and then we will draw that second circle. Something is very off there. And I can see here my point of my compass, I accidentally stuck it outside the line. So I'm going to erase that and draw the proper circle, and then we can carry on. And it still looks off, which tells me that it's my outside circle that I messed up on in the first place. Alright, so I'll draw the outside circle again, and then we can carry on. See guys, I make mistakes too. It's no big deal. Okay, that looks much better. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to take this piece over to the drill press. I am going to drill a blade entry hole in the middle, and we will cut out that interior circle, but just cut it just slightly outside of the lines. So being 3/8 of an inch thick cherry, it's a fairly soft wood and a fairly simple cut. You don't need a very aggressive blade. So I just have a number 3 PGT blade in here, and that's pretty much all you're going to need to cut this. Now, if you have mad scrolling skills, you don't need to cut outside the line. You can just cut on the line. I just find that you get better results if you cut outside the line and then just refine it with the oscillating drum sander. So use your sander and sand up to that line and get that perfect circle in the middle of your blank. Okay, so at this point now, on the bottom of this piece where you've cut the circle out of it, we're just going to run it just a few times back and forth on some sandpaper mounted to MDF. That'll just clean it up and get any burrs off the back. We don't want to get in here with sandpaper and sand around because we want that sharp, crisp edge. We don't want to round that off, not even a little bit. So the sandpaper on the MDF is your best bet here. And that's it. That's all that takes. We will also sand the top surface of our other board that mates with this one. Now I would like to do a little bit of a laser embellishment on the inside of our spoon rest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a measurement of this circle so I know the parameters I'm working with, and then I'm going to take it inside and hit this with some kind of a design from the laser. So I'm going to be making an engraving pattern using Lightburn, and the first thing I want to do is open Lightburn up. And we know the parameters of our spoon rest. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a circle, and I will change its size to what it is that we know that the inside diameter of the spoon rest is. And for us, that ends up to be 58 millimeters. So I can change it up here on both the width and the height. And this now is the parameters that we have to work in. Now up here, we can see that in this engraving layer, I have the output shut off. So it will never burn, it will never engrave, but it will give us a guideline as to where we can engrave. From here, I want to import, and I've downloaded an image off the internet. It's a JPEG of a tea bag. So we can just click this here and then click open, and it will bring it into our work area. But it's a JPEG, so they actually engrave a little differently. So I'll just zoom in here so we can see what we're doing a little better. And what we want to do now is turn this into a line drawing. So the good thing about Lightburn is it has the ability to do that very, very easily. And all we need to do is, as long as this JPEG here is highlighted, we can go up to Tools, click that, and then right down here at the bottom, Trace Image. And this will open a new window, and the purple lines here are showing us the tracing. This is what our laser is going to engrave. And you can change the different settings if you don't like it, play around with it. But if you're happy with it, we can go down here to the bottom and we can click Delete After Tracing. It's right here. We'll just click this. And what that will do is once we click OK, it will eliminate our drawing and it will just leave our tracing of it, which is now a line drawing as opposed to a JPEG. Now up here at the top, our width and height configurations, I want to lock them because then we can change the ratios here and the size of our drawing, but still keep its proportions correct. So I've shrunk it down. Now we can see it fits within the parameters of our spoon rest, but I don't want it on this layer because this layer here is our guide. So I'm going to click on this blue layer and we can see here that it's a fill, which means it's going to fill in all of these lines along here. 100 speed, 75 power, the output is on. I prefer to do something different. I like 120 speed and I like to use 65% power for something like this with only one pass. Once you're happy with your settings, you can click OK. And there is our image ready to go. So at this point now, I want to bring in some text. So I've got this text icon over here, the letter A. We will click that, and then we can come over here and click again, and we will end up with a cursor. And I'm just going to type out the words that I want. And in this case, I want tea time, but I don't like that font. So we can come up here to the font. You can see it right here. And if you click this drop down, as you run your cursor over the fonts, it will show you what it's going to look like. Now for me, I prefer this one down way at the bottom, so I'll just click it, and this is actually what I'm looking for, but it's a little big. So if you come over here to the height section of the text, you can click your up and down arrows and change it up and down, however you like. If it's still not the right size because of their automatic parameters, as long as it's locked in place with your width and your height up here at this lock, you can drag it all you want at the corner and change the height to custom parameters to fit in the area that you like. Now for me, this now has automatically placed it on burn layer 01. I prefer to keep things in different layers. That way, if I burn this tea bag and it's too light, I can just burn the tea bag again without having to burn the letters. The way it is right now, it'll burn them both at the same time. I have no control over one or the other. So I want to take this tea time and I'm going to place it on a different layer, O2, which is the red layer. And it has fill. Oh, the output is off here. So we're going to turn that on. And now we can see by the colors that it's different layers. We'll change our parameters just like we did to 120, 65, one pass. Click OK. And that's it, guys. We are done this little pattern. So from here, you can highlight everything, go to Arrange, and then Group. And that will put all of this pattern together so that it's in the same configuration. You can move it around wherever you like, just to make it a little easier to line up. Now, because you're making this pattern yourself, you may want to see what it's going to look like if it burns. And if you come right up here to this little screen and click on it, it will show you exactly what it's going to look like if you burn it. And that is the effect we're looking for. We're happy with it, so we can click OK. Now, one more little trick to help you with the alignment of this whole thing is I like, for instance, just when it's a little pattern like this, I like to stick it right in the middle of my burn board. So you can highlight it, click this icon, and move to page center. And that will line you up perfectly in the middle. It'll help you line it up when you're engraving. If you have burned a grid on your waste board and use absolute coordinates like I do, then there is no issues with aligning your patterns. And because we use different layers for our image and our lettering, we have the flexibility to turn them on or off as we please if we need to change things. And guys, that's it. It is as simple as that. That is one of our spoon rest patterns made, and it honestly is pretty quick. And what I have come up with is this. So with those now done, what we can do is we can take our blanks and we will glue our cutouts, just like this. We will glue them on top of our laser engravings, making sure that we really clamp them well to get a good seal between the two pieces, that all of our edges are lined up, and most importantly, don't go crazy on the glue, but get in here with a cotton swab and some water and really clean up that squeeze out as best you can. Get all of it out of there. Once you get them clamped up, you need to let these completely dry. Well, with those blanks all dried up now, we can move on to the next step. And what that next step is going to be is going to take this over to the scroll saw and we're going to cut around that perimeter. Once again, for my liking, I'm going to cut just outside of the line and then sand up to the line afterwards using the belt sander. Now guys, this is thicker. That number 3 blade is probably not going to cut it. So I think I'm going to put in a number 7 to be able to cut this 3/4 inch thick disc out of the cherry. Well, at this point now you should have something that looks like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the router table and I'm going to place a 1/8 inch round over around the upper and the lower outside edges. Once we get that done, we have a little bit of shaping to do in this front edge. Well, what we need now is right in the front here on both of our spoon rests, we need a place for the handle to go. It doesn't have to be a large area, but it should be somewhere here in the front. So we're actually going to just guesstimate this here. Let's say here and here. This is all by eye. I think that'll be good right there. And I'll do the same thing on this tea time one. Somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right. So the other thing that we're going to want to do is mark the depth of this indentation. And what I want it to be is half the distance between the base here where our engraving is and the top of this ring. Well, that's a 3/8 distance. So what I want is I want this indentation to be 3/16. You know, I think I'm going to make it a little more. I'm going to make it a 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to carefully place a mark there at 1/4 inch. And what we're going to do is I'm going to mark this out and I'm going to cut it or carve it or whatever you want to call it with a Dremel tool. Okay, and there we have our little divot in the front for the spoon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully sand here to soften these edges and this inside edge here and all the way around. You just want to be careful that you're not sanding in here. Don't compromise your engraving. And once we're done with that, well, we need ourselves a little bit of resin. Well, what I want the resin for is to seal in these engravings and as well to give quite a bit of extra protection to the base of this for warm spoons and that sort of thing when you take them out of your hot tea or coffee, and because of the liquid that's involved there from the tea or the coffee. So I really want something to protect this engraving and the base of the cherry. So what I'm going to do is pour a little bit of clear resin just on the underside of that little groove that we cut out there for the handle of the spoon. We don't want to fill it up. We just want to cover up our engraving and then let that fully cure. Once the resin is completely 100% cure, we're going to give this several coats of a satin varnish on all of the cherry to finish this project off, bring out the colors of that cherry, and to seal everything in and, you know, protect it. And that, guys, is basically the end of this project. And there you have it. Shop-made spoon rests. Guys, this project opens itself up to a ton of modifications. The most obvious one that comes to my mind is the size. While these were made to be small for a spoon for a tea or a coffee, you can make them larger for things like wooden spoons beside the stove or serving spoons, that sort of thing. It is very changeable. The dimensions are very changeable to whatever it is that you want to use this for. Truth be told, these little mini ones, these little 2.5 or whatever it ended up being by the end of it, these are actually made for us for camping because we're always mixing a tea or a coffee over at the Coleman stove. We don't want to place our spoon down on the dirty table or what have you. So we thought, why not a little miniature spoon rest that doesn't take up any space at all, but you can still keep your spoon clean? Because if you're someone like my wife, you just don't have one coffee in the morning or one tea. My wife drinks no less than 3.8 gallons, I think, of tea per day. So that spoon gets a lot of use throughout the day. Okay, maybe it's 3.7 gallons, but either way, you get the point. The bottom line here, guys, is this is a great looking project. They make a great gift. A fantastic way to use up spare scrap stock just sitting around. And honestly, they look great. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed the project and the content of the show. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. You click that bell, then you're not going to miss the notifications of future episodes. Guys, I want to thank you again for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the project. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope you're going to try this for yourself. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.